Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Jeff with Bear River Blogger, and we're going to do another Bear River Blogger podcast. And as usual, I'm actually recording this from the Bear River Migratory Bird Refuge. I'm sitting actually in one of their parking lots right now, um, watching a kestrel box that they put up this past winter to kind of attract kestrels, American kestrels, to nest on the refuge in these boxes. It's kind of unique. I did an article about it. I think it was last year, kind of the proposing the idea that they do some kestrel boxes out here. And this winter, they put up 3 kestrel boxes on the refuge. Um, so that's actually kind of another story for another day. But I'll put a link down in the description below about the kestrel boxes. 'Cause that's kind of a neat thing that they're doing this year. But the reason what I was going to talk to you about today is give you guys kind of a simple, I don't know if I'd call it a tip or maybe just a suggestion on something for you guys that do photography that will save a lot of grief over losing out on what could have been one of your best photos that you may have ever taken. And I relearned this again yesterday while I was on the Bear River Migratory Bird Refuge auto tour route, photographing great blue herons. And it's something that I have to say I do every once in a while. And I've been photographing for almost 40 years now. I started, I think, in the late 80s, mid 80s, something like that. I'm not even sure when, sometime in the 80s. And I've been photographing quite a bit since then. And every once in a while, I always forget certain things that are just so simple that I take for granted. And the one that I want to kind of emphasize with you guys is what I should have done yesterday. Now, I do a lot of different photography, and sometimes I use the same camera for everything, landscape photography, or maybe I'll go shoot a waterfall or a sunset or bird photography. All those things take different settings and different lenses, and you got to do a lot of changes on your camera. And some of them are so dramatic that when you do the settings for one thing, like sunset photography and waterfall photography are drastically different than your settings for bird photography, especially with the shutter speed in the aperture and how much light your camera is going to let in. Now, the reason I bring this up is yesterday I was photographing, like I said, some great blue herons on the Bear River Bird Refuge. I found 2 really cool scenes where the herons were sitting. One was sitting by some cattails, and the first one was sitting in the cattails, and it was just incredible. It was backlit. I don't like to shoot into the sun hardly ever, but it was backlit, and the sun was glistening off the ice, and it was just spectacular. I'm like, these are amazing. So I had to capture them. Well, the first one, I didn't pay any attention to my camera. I just figured, okay, it's my bird camera. Um, I'm going to just take some pictures. Well, I forgot that I used the camera previously for something else, and I had the settings way out of whack. I had the ISO way up because I was shooting in low light the day before. So what happened was, and I didn't notice this until after the Great Blue Heron got up and left, and it was too late. My images were just blown. I had just way overexposed. Just horrible. Not even anything usable. It was just I was like embarrassed and kind of like frustrated because that was the most incredible scene I think I ever saw with great blue herons, the way everything was set up. Luckily, I drove a few hundred yards and I saw this kind of a similar scene, except the heron was on the ice, and that's the one. That's the image you're looking at now on this video. Is That's kind of what I was looking at, and that one I actually noticed that the first one I took, I just blew the image. It was horrible. This one I actually corrected it luckily before the heron flew off, and I got the right settings, and I got the image. But what I wanted to suggest and give you guys kind of a quick little photography tip when you're changing cameras, changing settings, photographing different things is whenever you go out and photograph something, take a couple of test shots. Check your camera, make sure your ISO is where you want it, your shutter speed's where you want it, your aperture, all these things, and also make sure your battery's not dying. I've had that happen a couple of times where I had to quickly change batteries right in the middle of shooting birds. So get your camera out when you first go somewhere and photograph. Take a couple of test shots and check everything. Look on your screen and make sure the image is reasonable. Make sure it's not too dark or way too light. So make sure your settings are right. Because every once in a while I forget that I used my camera for something else the day before, and I forget to turn the settings back. And this is what happens. It doesn't happen very often, but it does happen enough to drive me nuts because I forget what I'm doing because I've got too many cameras and I like to photograph too many different things. I should just leave my bird camera for my bird camera, and then my settings are always the same, but I don't. I always grab whatever camera I have and go do whatever I'm doing with it, and sometimes this happens. So take a test shot. Just go when you wherever you get to wherever you're going, take a couple shots, look at it, check everything. When it's good to go, then you're fine. That way you won't lose what I think could have been one of my best great blue heron images I've possibly taken. At least I think so anyway. So just a suggestion. Hopefully that helps. I'm probably not a problem that most people have, but even though I've been photographing for almost 4 decades, these little quirks still pop up, it seems like, and it's just part of just part of being a photographer. Sometimes you get in the mode and you forget what you're doing because when you're in bird photography, you got to hurry get the bird before it flies off, and sometimes you forget in the minute when that's happening that you need to check your settings. So do that before you start. So save a lot of grief, save a lot of headache. So anyway, I hope that helps. Um, if you like these podcasts, video casts, feel free to subscribe to this channel, and you can follow us at bearriverblogger.com, and we will catch you on the next podcast.